I had never cared much about birthdays until the 65th one crept up like a reminder. Written in shaky handwriting across the mirror, the kind that fog leaves after a shower. My daughter had dropped off a cake the night before, chocolate with a heavy frosting. And she had kissed my cheek quickly before leaving for her night shift at the hospital. "Don't stay up late," she told me as if I were still the one who tucked her in. Alone in my kitchen, I had cut a thin slice, eaten it slowly, then wrapped the rest in foil. I told myself I didn't mind. 65, still strong. Still reading the paper without glasses if I held it out far enough. Retired from the post office but working part-time at the hardware store in this quiet corner of Oceanside, California. What more was I supposed to want? That was the story I tried to sell myself. Then Maribel showed up. She wasn't supposed to be there that Tuesday morning. My son had found her through a local agency when my back gave out 2 years ago. She came twice a week, help with the heavier chores, vacuuming under furniture, pulling weeds from the yard. Younger than my own children. With hair so black it carried blue highlights in sunlight. And an accent that stretched words into music. The first time she stepped through my doorway, she looked around with a frankness that unnerved me. She noticed the photos, the dust, the stack of unopened mail. "You live alone?" she asked bluntly, no sympathy in her tone, only fact. When I nodded, she shrugged and set down her cleaning supplies. "It will be easy then. Less mess. Easy, less mess." That became her rhythm. She moved through my house like someone mapping a place she'd never return to, quick, efficient, detached. I should have left it there. I should have treated her like what she was, hired help. But people who live alone for long stretches notice small things. The way her bracelets clicked when she scrubbed dishes. The way she hummed songs I didn't know while mopping. The way she sometimes paused by the window, staring out as if trying to remember something important. This morning, though, she seemed restless. She arrived without her usual tote, carrying only a small purse. She pushed open the screen door without knocking. And when she saw me at the table with my coffee, she smiled in a way that felt different. Less guarded. "Birthday boy," she said, her voice teasing. "How old now? 70? I chuckled but it lodged in my throat. 65, I corrected. She tilted her head, narrowed her eyes, then let out a low whistle. "Old man." The words should have stung. Maybe they did. Because I looked at her across the small kitchen and suddenly wanted to prove something, though I couldn't have said what. I leaned back, lifted my mug, pretended indifference. "You'll get here someday," I muttered. She laughed, quick and sharp. "Not for a long time." She started wiping the counter though it was already clean, her movements nervous. I thought about saying nothing, letting her words float off like dust in sunlight. But something in me pushed. "Old doesn't mean done," I said quietly. She froze. For a second I thought she hadn't heard me. Then she turned, rag in hand, eyes darker than usual. "You think so?" she asked. The air felt heavier. I wanted to answer but my throat closed. She took a step closer. Her hand brushed the table. "I think you're wrong," she whispered. And before I could piece it together, her tone, her eyes, the nearness, she bent down, pressed her lips against mine. It wasn't long, maybe a second, maybe 2. But enough that my chest jolted, my pulse stuttered like a faulty engine. When she pulled back, she looked almost frightened. Her rag dropped to the floor. I stared, trying to reconcile what had just happened with the quiet Tuesday morning. The birthday cake wrapped in foil, the steady hum of the refrigerator. "Maribel," I began, but she shook her head quickly. Forget it. I shouldn't. She bent to grab the rag, avoiding my gaze. My hands trembled on the mug. I should have said stop, leave, don't come back. Instead, what slipped out was softer. Why? She stood up slowly, rag clutched tight. Her lips parted, then closed again. Finally, she murmured, because sometimes old men don't look so old. Then she walked to the sink, turned on the water, began scrubbing as if nothing had happened. My heart hammered like I was 20 again. The house smelled of lemon soap, birthday cake, and something new I couldn't name. The rest of that morning moved like a dream I couldn't wake from. Each sound stretched longer than it should have, each breath too loud in my own ears. And I sat there at the table pretending to read the newspaper while Maribel rinsed glasses that didn't need rinsing, dried them one by one, lined them carefully on the counter as if order could erase what had just happened. And the whole time I wanted to speak, but my tongue felt stiff, heavy, unwilling. So I watched instead, the way water slid down her arms, the small movements of her wrist, the tremble in her fingers, until she finally broke the silence, not with an explanation, not with an apology, but with something ordinary. Do you want me to take the trash out? And I nodded too quickly, grateful for the distraction, ashamed of the eagerness. And she lifted the bag, tied it tight, carried it outside, leaving me alone in the kitchen where the air still felt charged, where I kept pressing my lips together, trying to decide if I had imagined the warmth of her mouth on mine. When she returned, she was calmer, her eyes avoiding mine, and she went back to wiping shelves, dusting corners, humming that nameless tune. And for a moment I almost believed nothing had changed, but inside everything had shifted. Like furniture dragged in the night, and I couldn't stop thinking, she called me old. Then she kissed me, both truths lodged inside me like stones rubbing together. By the time she finished her chores and gathered her things, the clock had slid past noon. The sunlight sharper through the blinds, and she lingered by the door longer than usual, holding her purse strap, biting her lip, and finally she said, "Happy birthday, Mr. Robert," the formal name she rarely used, and I answered, "Thank you," in a voice that came out raw, too quiet, and then she was gone, the screen door slamming gently behind her, leaving the scent of lemon soap and the echo of that stolen kiss. That night I couldn't eat the leftover cake, couldn't even sit at the table without replaying it, so I paced the small living room, stared at the old photographs on the wall, my late wife Anna smiling by the pier, my children on Easter mornings, the dog we buried under the oak, and for the first time in years, I felt guilty in a way I couldn't name. Not because of the kiss itself, but because of what it awakened in me. Something I had folded away neatly after Anna passed, something I told myself was done. Sleep didn't come, and when it finally did, I dreamed of nothing but the sound of her bracelets clinking against the sink. And I woke up sweating, heart beating too fast for a man my age. The next 2 days crawled, each hour marked by the absence of her footsteps. And I told myself I would act normal when she returned, that I would draw a line, make sure nothing crossed again. But when Thursday arrived and she walked in wearing a red blouse I had never seen before, hair pulled back, face bare of makeup yet luminous, my resolve cracked. She greeted me with a simple "morning," set her purse down, and began vacuuming. And I found myself following her with my eyes, memorizing the curve of her shoulders, the rhythm of her movements. At one point she caught me staring, and instead of looking away she smirked, a quick curve of her mouth that said she remembered too. I cleared my throat, reached for the newspaper. Tried to bury myself in headlines about markets and weather, but the words swam, meaningless. When she took a break to drink water, she leaned against the counter and asked, "What do you usually do on your birthdays?" I told her the truth, not much anymore. She tilted her head, studying me, then whispered, "You should have more." I wanted to ask what she meant, but the phone rang, my daughter checking in, her voice bright. Tired from work, and I forced myself to sound steady, grateful, normal. After the call I found Maribel watching me, her expression unreadable. She finished cleaning, gathered her things again. And as she left she brushed her hand lightly against mine. So brief I might have missed it if not for the spark it left. That night I sat in my recliner staring at the dark window. The reflection of my own face lined and tired, and I whispered to the empty room, "What am I doing?" But no answer came. The following week she arrived earlier than usual, said she had rearranged her schedule. And while she dusted the bookshelf she asked questions she had never asked before, about my job at the post office, about Anna, about the years I lived in Chicago before moving west, and I found myself talking, really talking, words spilling out like a faucet turned on too long. And she listened, really listened, not with polite nods but with eyes fixed. Occasional murmurs, and I realized how long it had been since anyone cared to hear my stories. When I paused she said softly, "You don't sound old when you talk about those days." And it hit me harder than the kiss had, because it was not about desire. It was about being seen, and that terrified me. Still, the line I promised to draw blurred further. And when she leaned over to adjust a picture frame, her arm brushed my shoulder. Deliberate or not I couldn't tell, but I felt it for hours after she left. The guilt grew heavier, not just because of Anna's memory but because of the tangled truth. I didn't want it to stop. I began noticing small things I had ignored before, her perfume lingering on a towel, the faint lipstick stain on a napkin she left behind. The way she sometimes sighed when she thought I wasn't listening. Each became a hook pulling me deeper. And yet, fear crept alongside. Fear of scandal, of my children finding out, of neighbors whispering, of becoming the subject of ridicule in this quiet Oceanside street, where everyone knew when you bought new curtains. But when Thursday came again and she finished her chores, she didn't leave right away. She sat at the table across from me, folded her hands, stared at them for a long moment before speaking. "I shouldn't have kissed you," she said, voice low, "but I don't regret it." My throat tightened. I wanted to answer but all I managed was, "Maribel." She looked up, eyes steady. "Do you?" The truth sat heavy in my chest, and though I wanted to say yes, to end it neatly, the word that slipped out was a quiet, shameful no. She nodded as if she expected that, then stood, walked around the table. And before I could move she bent again, kissed me slower this time, longer. Her hand brushing the back of my neck, and the room spun. When she pulled away she whispered, "See? Not old." Then she picked up her purse, left without another word, leaving me trembling in my chair. The sound of the door closing final yet promising more. That night I didn't even try to sleep. I sat in the dark, fingers pressed to my lips, wondering how a man could live 65 years certain of who he was, only to be undone by a woman half his age in a matter of seconds, and wondering, too, what would happen when the rest of the world found out.